would you want to eat in a restaurant with a heavy fork and nothing fresh on the menu?
Okay. Right away, chef.
Is it because you're in space?
The great restaurant in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about space or restaurants.
Clearly.
But if there was one, then the heavy fork would stop it floating away.
Doesn't really work that with gravity.
No.
There either is gravity or there isn't.
Yeah.
If the people are floating away, the fork's not going to be staying. Your sprouts are going to be all over while you can't lift your fork.
No sprouts. This is just like the toothpaste that astronauts have.
So what do you need the fork for?
To open the toothpaste.
It's like somebody direct from NASA. Mark, what do you reckon?
I think the space thing sounded quite plausible.
You like that,
actually.
do you think?
Yeah, because in space you can't have anything fresh, can
Okay.
you?
They grow things in space,
It's
don't
nothing
they?
to do with space! Philip, help me out.
I'd love to help you out.
Go on then.
So, are we talking about, like, game?
Is it a fork or
Yes,
is it another...
it isn't
got a
eating
fork
with-
in the road?
Is it to do with space? I've had some very difficult TV appearances, but my classes normally do stay on.
She starts throwing the hat around, you know you're in trouble, Mark Watson.
OK, none of this is working. There is a computer scientist, his name is Dan Jarafsky, and he looked at the description of dishes on 6,500 menus. And the higher-end restaurants, they tend not to describe food as fresh. They don't describe it as tasty, they don't describe it as ripe, because the customers in the high-end restaurants expect it to be those things. In fact, in posh restaurants, they tend to use kind of sexy terminology. So if food is sort of sensuous or silky, they use language like that.
Nude.
Yeah. Nude, yes. Yeah. Care for a nude aubergine.
We got a topless chicken and we put it under the grill. Ooh, it's a bit naughty.
This sandwich will wank you off.
That's too sexy.
Yes. We've all thought it. We've all thought it.
What's wrong with you? No! OK, moving on. In posh restaurants, they use a completely different language. And here is the bizarre thing. People enjoy their food more with heavy cutlery. So there's a guy called Charles Michel, and he is the chef in residence at Oxford University's Cross-Modal Research Laboratory. So what they are researching is how our different senses modulate any appreciation of flavour. And so he gave everybody exactly the same meal. And people who used heavy cutlery were willing to pay 15% more for their food. It is one of the most bizarre things.
Yeah. Was there any point when the fork became too heavy? Because I reckon there is that is a scale that actually, by the time you've got like a garden fork, people are then refusing to pay again.
What you might have done now inadvertently is inspired cheap restaurants to glue their forks to the table to give the illusion.
Or glue two forks together, thereby doubling the weight.
Yeah.
One of the ways that restaurants trick you into spending a bit more money, did anybody know?
Hypnotism.
What?
Hypnotism.
Hypnotism.
Would you like the veal?
I mean, I'd certainly order it after that.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, one of the things they do is they remove the pound sign from menus.
Oh, yeah.
So they did a study at Cornell University, and if it just has the numbers, somehow we don't associate that with the true cost of something.
Yeah,
You think it might just be 2.4 ants or something?
Our brain kind of doesn't turn that into dollars or pounds. If you put $20, then you suddenly think about the price, but if you just have the number, subconsciously, we don't think about the cost of
What
things.
kind of animal does this skull belong to?
Toothy.
Well,
It's very toothy.
looks dinosaur-y to me.
Well, you can certainly tell that it's not herbivore, it's not vegetarian, can't you?
Is it a killer
Saber-toothed
rabbit?
tiger.
It's a killer rabbit.
Is it a saber-toothed tiger?
Carnivorous. No, it's a bit smaller than that.
Is it a tiny mouse?
And it's a little bit bigger than that.
Is it a mole?
It's a mole!
Oh,
That's a mole. Well done. Well done. A species, not surprisingly, is called the star-nosed mole. And
It looks like that guy from Futurama, doesn't it?
it does. Zoidberg. Yeah. Why wouldn't you look like Zoidberg? But it's a wonderful mole. They live underground and we don't really have much to do with them. but they're equipped with special powers. For example, they can smell in stereo. So they can tell where something is coming from, which direction they can smell. So very useful in a lift, wouldn't they? They'd be able to... It was you. It was you, darling. It was you. And they have toxins with which they paralyse and stun the worms that they eat. Why would they want to do that? If they've got the worm anyway, why would they want to stun it?
So they can eat it later?
So they can eat it later.
So they find it and go...
They have larders.
Tasty, but lunchtime.
Exactly. Deferred pleasure. But pop it in their larder. But they're...
Amazing!
Yeah. They need a lot of sustenance because they do a lot of work. They do extraordinary tunnelling. They can dig 150 feet of new tunnels a day. Now, given their size and weight, that is the equivalent of a human moving 4 tons, about 1,000 shovel loads, every 20 minutes.
So why didn't we get them to do the tunnel?
Every 20 minutes.
Amazing
Seriously.
and cute.
Yeah, about 400 of them, cross-rail, done in a fortnight.
Why do doctors hit your knee with a hammer?
To test your reflexes.
Yeah.
That's correct, but what reflexes are they?
The reflexes are
It's because they don't like...
There's nerves that run from the thigh upwards to the
head.
No. No, you would think that.
It's something to do... So the expression's like a knee-jerk response.
A knee-jerk reaction, yeah, knee-jerk.
Because it doesn't go to the brain.
Yeah,
it goes... It communicates amongst itself.
Well, it goes
somehow.
up to the spinal cord. It doesn't go all the way up to the brain at all.
Yeah.
So it is unmediated by the brain entirely. It is absolutely a knee-jerk
It only
reflex.
happens in 2 times. One is when you get hit on the knee with a little hammer like that, and the other is when you're asleep on a crowded train. It's only 2 times. And you never see a doctor rushing off with a little hammer.
Anyway,
What if you did a murder with your reflex? If someone sort of attacked your knee and then reflex, you had a knife attached to your shoe or something, and you killed them, would you be able to say, but the reflex, it didn't go to my brain, it only went to the bottom of my spine, so I didn't really do it?
Yes.
That's like when you're driving and you have an automated response. It's called like murder by automaton, but you don't go to prison. So if you sneeze, for instance, and then you run someone over, someone sneezed.
Yeah. Talk about a reflex.
That means there's been a murder!
Has murdered someone.
Now they know they'll get away with it. It's something like
You walk into a room with a gun, cocked, sneeze, it goes off, you kill someone, you're in the clear.
So if you want to kill your wife, what you do is you drive down to Dover, you get her right up against a cliff, and then you put your leg behind her and then get a doctor to tap the knee. Off she goes.
And the doctor would go to prison.
That would act up.
The doctor would go to prison.
I think so.
What if he was sneezing as he tapped the knee?
The perfect crime.
Yeah.
Broadchurch Series 2.
I love this imaginary super compliant wife that you've found.
To be taken.
Just come all the way here and stand there. What are you doing here?
Why does the GP come with us?
Get her out of the house.
Isn't it a lovely view, my love? Stand still.
It's called orphaned negative. So these are words that have the opposites, but nobody uses them. They're now obsolete. So what would be the opposite of ineffable?
Effable.
Effable, but nobody ever uses this as a perfectly good word, isn't
I've
it?
heard people say that.
Effable, it's not effable.
Oh, he's got nice trousers on today. He's totally effable.
Yeah, well, funny, and thank you. I really appreciate it. They're very roomy.
No, there are lots of good ones. Incessant. So cessant. Nobody talks about cessant anymore. Well, this is the weird thing about this word, OK? What it tells you in the dictionary is that cessant hasn't been used since 1701. What happened that year? They thought, you know, I'm done with that word.
What about for you? What about disdain?
Oh, yes,
Because
the opposite
you're...
of being a good Dane. Yes,
Yeah.
a disdain.
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 Yeah. Innocent? Anybody?
Yesn't.
Innocent. So innocent, yeah, innocent was a criminal.
Innocent.
Until about the 17th century, so nocentum, Latin meaning to harm.
Is nonchalant?
So chalant.
Chalant.
Yes. I'm going to refer to you as chalant. I like that. I think that sounds rather good. Yeah, chalant and effable.
Stop it, you.
To be fair, Jimmy, I had to have it pointed out to me.
Oh, I hate... Inflammable and flammable.
Same thing.
It is exactly the same thing. It's not an orphan negative at all. In fact, the opposite of flammable is non-flammable.
Explosive.
I beg your pardon?
Just reading.
Oh, explosive. It used to be inflammable because it comes from the Latin inflammare, but they adopted flammable deliberately in the 20th century because, honestly, inflammable seemed ambiguous, so that is one of the reasons why we now say flammable and then non-flammable.
Oh, right.
Anybody know what a contronym is?
Oh, so it's like... So got synonym?
Yeah.
Antonym.
Antonyms, yes. So it's a word that is also its own opposite. So screen, which means to show, like screen a film, and screen also means to hide. Another example, bound, so fastened to the spot and also heading somewhere.
Oh, that's good.
They're good, aren't they, consonants? See, you like this? Fast, so moving quickly, and stuck and unable to move. It's the...
And also, I always thought with fast food, the fast is not to eat, and then also to eat loads really cheaply.
Yeah, there you go.
I think we may need marijuana for this.
Yeah.
It seems to me like this should be a conversation that happens at, like, yeah, man, fast.
Yeah.
But no, man, fast food.
I love that your impression of someone on drugs means you've never taken them.
Antigrams. Anybody know what an antigram is?
It is the opposite of a gram.
So these are words where if you do an anagram, the anagram itself has the opposite meaning to the original word. So
Impossible.
Yeah. Dormitories, tidier rooms is one. There's one. Customers, I like this one. The anagram is store scum.
There's a few people out there working retail.
Here's another one, an antigram. A volunteer fireman. I never run to a flame. And 45 is an anagram of over 50. It's just a woman lying, basically. It's the most dangerous thing to do in bed.
Tell the truth.
Anybody else?
Reverse cowgirl? They had that locked and loaded?
There was some suggestion you might say that, darling. Is it a particular favourite?
Yeah, how did we know?
So we're looking at the past. We're looking at particularly the Victorian era, so something that is dangerous to do in bed in the Victorian time.
They would have had candles and things to light themselves to bed.
Yep, exactly
Gas lamps and things.
Candles in particular.
Oh, candles, yeah.
Why would you take a candle to bed?
Is it reading in bed?
To read, yeah, reading. The Silent Killer. It's not thought to be a good thing at all because it was burning as you drifted off.
Yeah.
There's a most fantastic summary of fires in London from 1833 to 1866. So in those days, all fires were dealt with by the fire insurance company, and they kept meticulous records. So here's a quick snapshot of 19th century London life. One death from a fire caused by a jackdaw. No details provided, that's it. Don't know what that was. Another caused by a monkey. 2 attributed to smoking in bed, 3 to sewing in bed. Anybody? Yeah. 12 to lightning, but the figure that tops all of these is 34 lethal fires caused by reading in bed. In fact, exactly equalled by the number of fires started by cats. Another common hazard in the 1800s is, of course, Christmas trees. Now, I dispute this. In those days, Christmas trees were lit with real candles.
Yeah.
Now, I am Danish. For the last 60 years, I've had Christmas lit with real candles, and so far, not a flicker of a fire. Just don't set the tree on fire. It's not complicated. But apparently, it was so great a risk in this country that insurance companies refused...
So you've got the candles on the
Special
tree?
candle holders that hook onto the branch like that, and you just make sure, when you put the candle on, that there isn't a branch directly above. That is the key to it. Honestly, I've never known this to happen, but insurance companies refuse to insure people against this particular thing.
So I think as long as you remember to take the jackdaw out at night.
Yeah.
Perhaps not. The lack of a jackdaw is why we've been so successful so far.
Has anyone ever done a poem about jackdaws and backdoors? Because if they haven't, I'm going to do one before the end. It's really bothering me that it sounds so like a backdoor.
You're right, the jackdaw and the backdoor does sound like some kind of reverse...
They go together.
Yes, they do. Right, you do that. We'll do the next question on our own.
Jackdaw, backdoor, lack-more, smack-whore. That's what I've got to. Seashore, seashore. Crack whore. I'm thinking crack whore is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, what about bead paw?
Beating a bee paw? No, it's got to be...
Why am I joining in?
She sells seashells down by the crack hall. Here comes a jackdaw flying in the back door.
You carry on, darling.
I've never been happier. Dopamine.
Hacksaw. Hang on, I'm looking at Jimmy Tax Law. How do you quell a carnivorous plant?
By quell, so do you mean sate it or stop it wanting?
Stop it being able to actually function. So let's have a quick look.
Okay.
Let's have a look at a Venus flytrap, OK? So you know the theory behind the Venus flytrap.
Fly away! Fly! From your life! Fly!
Have a look at a video of it actually functioning, because it is the most extraordinary thing. So we'll watch it just closing up now. So there is the fly. Oh. I mean, it's creepy, right? But if you wanted to make it stop working, you would anaesthetise it exactly as you do human beings. So you can gas them with ether, you can swab the roots with lidocaine, and what'll happen is it'll just stop working. The fly will land there, but the thing won't close down. And it is found that the electrical impulses in the plant have temporarily dropped to zero. It is exactly the same effect as what happens to us.
So a plant would be exactly the same reaction to an anaesthetic as a human?
Yes, exactly. We don't entirely know how anaesthetics actually work. We do know that something like lidocaine works by stopping local neuron signalling to the human brain, but it also seems to work on plants, and the truth is we don't really know how anaesthetics work. Can I just show you something which I hadn't seen before, but maybe you have? I'd never seen a Venus flytrap in flower, and actually they're rather beautiful, because you only ever see it when it's looking sort of slightly vicious. But isn't it rather lovely?
That's terrifying.
I think it's rather beautiful. They gassed all sorts of other plants as well. The effect is the same. They all just went straight to sleep.
Has anyone asked why they're up to this?
We're trying to work out how anaesthetics work.
It wasn't like a group of flies.
No, it wasn't.
Something's not done about these flies.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that they found out really recently about pain in the brain is that if you think about colours, it distracts your brain from the part of your brain that's getting the messages about being in pain. So it's something quite good if you don't have any pain relief, if you think about colours one at a time.
Yeah. People with hypermobility, so double-jointed people, appear to be resistant to sort of topical creams and to being injected to local anaesthetics. That is... I know, that's quite strange, isn't it? 3 times more likely a hypermobile person to report that local anaesthetic is not effective.
I know you're still talking, but I can't stop looking at that. I'm aware you're speaking, but who cares?
He does these amazing YouTube yoga tutorials.
I can't help feeling, I mean, I know it's just a story, but I think a radioactive spider's been involved there.
How can a passenger hold up a train with a cheese and tomato sandwich?
Just leave it in a bag and a rucksack by itself.
Yeah, that's true.
Put the sandwich on the tracks.
Well, sort of. Sort of put the sandwich on the tracks.
I know stuff.
But...
You were in that day, weren't you?
So, first you have to eat the sandwich.
Oh.
Right, and then how are you going to get it on the tracks?
By flushing the toilet.
You're absolutely right. So, tomato seeds have a casing that allows them to survive the trip all the way down through the human digestive system intact.
Oh.
Human excrement is an excellent fertiliser, and it has caused so much trouble because tomato plants are actually growing onto tracks in the UK from train toilets being emptied. People haven't eaten tomatoes.
I think this is a really positive story of hope.
Yes?
These tomatoes against all adversity.
In Norwich, I don't know if you've been to Norwich Station, it's a beautiful station, and it's got a glass roof, and it acts like a giant greenhouse, and passengers are not doing as they're told. They are flushing in the station.
Not shitting on the platform, now. They're leaning over the platform.
They're flushing on the train in the platform.
I see. Surely it's been years since they actually dumped the loo on the...
No, so 1 in 10 trains still dumping directly onto the track. They say that by 2019 it will all be over.
But why does the tomato plant stop the train going? It's like they're small plants. Should we make trains stronger?
It's a plant, grows, isn't it?
If you grow one in a poo, the tomatoes are massive.
Those toilets had this incredibly high suction system, you know, and every few years somebody gets their arms stuck down. Yeah.
Their arm?
Yes. Usually, I think getting a phone out of...
Oh, right.
Not trying to get back the tomato. In France, in 2011, it took fire crews 2 hours to rescue a man who'd got his arm caught down the toilet, and eventually they carried him away on the stretcher with the toilet bowl still attached.
Were they trying to get to him up through the toilet?
I don't
Pull you right through. We'll get you right through. I'm not going to get right through. You need to pull me out this way.
For our final question, we're going to play a game of Beer Hunter. OK, so I have 4 cans. OK, so...
I don't like the look of this. That's Mark's.
OK.
Okay.
OK, so here's one for you, here's one for you. Let's have that Phil, and then you have that one. There we go, Phil.
Thank you.
OK, let's have a go at opening them. Sarah, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going to do some tapping first.
Do some tapping. Do you think that's going to help?
Well, this is an Essex trick.
OK, open yours,
You want to open mine?
Yes, please, yeah.
Go. Wow.
OK,
Fizzy.
so not that one. Alan?
Will it?
Oh. OK, not that one. Mark?
Well, the more this game goes on, the worse feeling I have about it.
No, OK.
Phyllis?
Wow. Phil? Which of those cans had the highest pressure?
Oh, they all have the same pressure.
Equal, right?
Yeah. So the pressure is constant. It's about 3 atmospheres, no matter how much you shake it. An unshaken can has a small amount of gas that sort of floats on top of the liquid, but when you shake it, it all gets mixed together. And then what happens is you've got bubbles floating inside the drink, and when you open the can, they rush back to the surface.
Fizzy water's the worst one.
Yeah, it can bring it, and then brings all the liquid up.
Oh, my God! Open it, close it again! A little bit, close it!
But you
You can't even tell, you can see it. Is it going to do it? I don't know. It's doing it! It's still doing it!
All my first jobs after McDonald's were in bars, and the one thing that you'd learn from, like, barbecues was that if you've poured someone a drink and it's fizzy, put your finger in it, and you can't do that when you work in a bar.
No.
Like, people think it's really rude.
But it does work.
But it,
Put
yeah,
their
of course it
finger
works.
in it.
But you were tapping the top and the bottom
Yeah.
of the can. What do you think that is going to do?
Well, it was just what we were told to do to make sure... You know, like, if it'd been, like, in the back of the car, in the boot for a bit, if you did that for a few taps, then it wouldn't fizz.
Well, so here's the thing. Tapping it top and bottom makes no difference whatsoever because the gas is already exactly where you want it.
Doing it now.
What you need to do is tap the sides.
What?
Yes, you need to tap the sides and dislodge the bubbles so that they rise to the top.
Sandy, you're changing my life. I'm nearly 40 years old. And I've just learned how to actually do this.
Yeah, so tap the sides, and then when you open the drink, the CO2 will rush out without displacing any liquid.
This is useful drinking information.
That's what we have the BBC for.
I know, right? What is the most useful organ of the body? I'm going to give you a clue.
OK.
It begins with a P.
Penis.
I just say, that picture of that gentleman... Is he wearing something underneath, or is that...
Are you going to make us explain the male physique? To you?
Perineum.
Perineum is very good.
That's an organ on its own. It's an area.
Just start beginning with P on the body, Pascoe?
Yeah.
How about a paunch?
Paunch? How is that useful?
I've always felt a bit sorry for people who've not got a paunch.
Yes. Nowhere to
I mean,
put
if you're
your
reading
beer.
in bed, you can rest your book.
Yes.
And actually, it's really important for dancing.
Why?
My dance partner from Strictly, Katya, was on the show this year with a thin person.
Right.
And they gave her a very bad back. Because she was always leaning in, trying to find him.
Right.
Whereas I was...
Readily available.
Always... at all times. Bang!
I'm going to give you an extra point.
That was why so many professional dancers approach me in nightclubs. If I dance with you, I'll live to be 100.
Sure
a paunch can so easily lead to crying on your own. If not managed properly.
Yes, that's so true. But,
I think you've curated yours very well.
I haven't created it, I've just mismanaged it.
Curated.
It's like, you know, when the Woodland Trust will sell you a forest?
Yeah.
And then it gets a bit overgrown.
Right, so what I'm looking for, we've all had one. We don't necessarily have one now, but we've all had one.
Who?
It's the placenta. In its time, it has performed the roles of the kidney, of the lungs, of the liver, the guts, the endocrine glands, disposed of waste. It is, because it's made by a woman, it is a multi-skilling organ.
And it's also a superfood.
Well, it's not scientifically proven,
no.
the whole eating the placenta thing. It's very trendy. The idea is that it is full of proteins, it's done all these things, but it's waste matter.
Do you know who eats placenta in the world?
Idiots.
Idiots.
Can you combine it with anything else?
Well, yes, you can. There are recipes, and I have some advice for preparing a placenta if anybody's interested. Clean it. First by draining all the blood, then rinsing it until it's pink. Then you'll have to cut away the umbilical cord and membranes. Once it's prepared, it's no different from something you'd get at the butcher's, so go ahead, roast, steam, sauté, flambé, whatever the culinary winds take you. Add herbs or garlic, if
So
you like.
essentially, it's like fish fingers.
You don't really often wash the blood off fish fingers.
I do, but quite often I've fallen over before deciding to...
The only tribe that actually routinely eats the placenta are affluent people in the USA. In fact, the Royal College of Midwives says there is absolutely no evidence that it does you any good whatsoever.
So it's total trendy garbage.
Generally, it's a stupid idea.
I'd be more concerned because it's not readily available on the shelves.
Right.
If I ate it once and it became the food for me... Which major chain?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to end up in a conversation going, oh, I'm not keen on Tesco's.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think theirs has been corn-fed. Just following, where can I get a placenta that I'm happy?
A free-range placenta.
Yeah.
Let's have a happy life.
Yeah.
I'm worried you'll be following heavily pregnant women around, just with your hands out, waiting.
You finished with that? You finished with that now?
Can you tell a knob from a yob? So we were talking about potpourri and potpourri. How would you know your upper class from your not so upper class?
Would they say, he's a yob? There's a noob and a yob.
It is absolutely to do with what you say. So in 1954, there was a linguistics professor at Aston University in Birmingham called Alan Ross, and he devised the terms you and non-you to distinguish speech patterns of the English upper classes and what we unfortunately call the lower social strata. For the following year, Nancy Mitford, the extraordinary one of the Mitford sisters, there she is on the right there with her sisters Unity and Diana. She picked this up in an essay, and she said that nowadays you couldn't tell the upper classes because they were no longer cleaner, richer, or better educated than anybody else. It was principally by language, and this caused tremendous anxiety in the middle classes. So the question is, would you use loo paper or toilet paper?
Bog roll. Well, do you know, it really is an interesting question. I was away last week, and it was in Namibia, and I went up to the man, because we were camping, and I said, have you got any bog roll? And he went, what? Like, it obviously doesn't work in Namibia. And I was actually flummoxed, thinking, now, what do I say?
What, did you do mime?
Yes, I did.
Did you?
Rather than say loo roll, which is just, I know.
Here's an interesting fact about wiping your bum.
Yes.
I've worked this out on the last tour of mine, right? But half the population, right, when they're wiping the bottom, right, they stand up and hand goes back and they wipe, right? And the other half, they stay sat down and reach in and have a wipe. And the weirdest thing is, one half, until I just said it now, didn't even know the other half existed.
How did you get inspired to start this survey?
Yeah.
How did you know about the other people?
I think I just walked in on someone.
Oh.
And I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is how you wipe your bum. I went, it isn't. What's this?
So this is a survey based on 2 people?
Then I started mentioning it.
Oh, you started mentioning it?
And I noticed that. Look, we'll do it now.
OK.
Right.
Come on, then.
If you stand up after you've finished and wipe your bottom, give me a cheer. If you stay sat down and reach in and wipe your bottom, give us a cheer.
50-50. It's weird.
I didn't think it was 50-50. I thought the ones who sit down were slightly camper noise.
When you go to a festival or any outdoor event, what is it that causes somebody to sit down on the lavatory and then completely mess up all the rest of it? You go, what shall I do with that? I'll throw that on the floor, then I'll completely unravel all the rest of the bog, and then somehow I'll get all that blue stuff all over the seat. Do you think, do you do that at home? I mean, how do you...
LSD, they're on LSD.
I think they might have known that you were behind them in the queue.
Every single one you ever go, they can't all imagine I'm in there. Although somebody did once push one of those things over when I was in it. Yes, and they did know it was me.
Did they?
But at least you can stand up. So for women, it's really difficult because you sort of have to hover, don't you? And I remember one time I went to the ladies and the lock didn't quite work. This is a very tricky moment for a woman because you have to sort of hover. So obsessed with not making a mess on the seat, I thought, oh, sod it, I'll just sit down. And as I sat down, the door burst open and a woman came straight in and she went, oh, I'm so sorry. And then she shut the door again and then she burst it open again and she went, you're Sally Toxby, can I... Give us a minute?
How does the what the hell effect work? WTH? Yes, darling.
This is relevant to people who are dieting or sometimes people who have substance abuse problems and things like that. So it's when you're being quite strict with yourself...
Stop talking about me for a second.
It's when you're being very strict with yourself and you think you've slipped up in a slight way. So you're really, really hungry and you have a biscuit when you're on a diet and then you go, oh, well, I've ruined the diet now. I've had a biscuit. I'm going to finish that packet of biscuits. I'm going to do some crack.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to... and start again tomorrow.
You're so right, because you think you've fallen off the wagon, you might as well just...
I've done everything wrong now, I'll get a tattoo,
For people who say, well, I was very good yesterday, and I've been good today, so tomorrow, Black Forest Gatto for breakfast.
I mean, that is certainly a what the hell effect, there's no question about that. There is another what the hell effect, but yours, I think, counts unquestionably. This is used by Dan Ariely and his partners at Duke University in North Carolina. And what it describes is how when someone has overcome their initial reluctance to cheat, subsequent dishonest behaviour gets easier. Oh. And he tested this with college students who were solving maths problems for money. And when his back was turned, they could cheat. And the more they saw they got away with it, the more they cheated. But what was interesting is the scores were not inflated by a few students who were cheating a lot, but many students cheating a little. Cheating, in that sense, is infectious. You go, what the hell, I can do it, so you do it. But animals, interestingly, animals can cheat. Coco, who is a wonderful gorilla in California, once tore a steel sink off a wall and then used sign language to tell her handlers that the cat had done it.
Yeah.
Real childlike fib. Well, me, it was the cat.
That's it, the closer you get to human beings, the
perhaps
more alive.
even more famous chimp, Nim Chimpsky, about whom a film was made, who has a really developed sign language. She used to duck out of sign language lessons by saying she needed to go to the loo when she didn't. You'd say, oh, I had to go for a pee, like that, and then she'd go off and you'd see her not going for a pee. Or him, rather, in this case. So animals are capable of deception.
So maybe we should only eat animals that can lie.
Well, lying seems to be a sign of intelligence, I'm glad to say, as an inveterate liar myself. Ariely, this man who did the work on the what the hell effect, he found people who score higher on psychological tests for creativity are more likely to engage in dishonesty. Anyway, there we are. We are who we are because we cheat.
How long before a silence becomes awkward? OK, it's about now, I think. It's about...
It was
horrible, wasn't it?
I think it's really awkward when you can hear your own stomach gurgle. Especially if it's a gig.
Yeah.
That's always a sign. Oh, this isn't going my way.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
I think comedy is quite a lot like sex, that if they haven't made a noise for a while, change what you're doing.
You could say that about parenting as well, actually.
Yeah. Oh. 2011, the University of Groningen, which is in Netherlands, discovered that a pause in conversation becomes awkward after 4 seconds.
Oh.
And after that, people start to feel anxious, they feel rejected.
I don't know, I read a really interesting thing by... it's an American research company called the Love Lab. And they basically looked at thousands and thousands of couples over the years, and they came up with a theory on call response. If you're sort of having a silence with someone, with your partner, you're looking at the paper and you go, oh, and they don't go, what? Then it takes like 7 good things to make up for that one bad thing, because people feel so rejected by that.
It's exactly that. It's about feeling rejected, because the reason that we like good conversation is it helps us feel good about ourselves.
We get dopamine, don't we? Like, teenage girls who stay on the phone for hours and hours have really, really high levels of dopamine, like they've, like, completed a PhD.
I always think, like, as comedians, we're like drug dealers. The drug we deal is endorphins, and you've already got them on you. We'll just help you release them.
The Irish mind silence, darling?
Well, it's never happened.
No.
We have yet to meet the awkward moment. I suppose after about 4 seconds of silence in Ireland, you'd bring in a wink at least.
Yeah. Just to keep things moving along.
Or you know yourself.
Yeah. And a bit of pointing, maybe. You know?
Oh, yeah. There he is, over there.
It's good, those phrases that kind of break the silence that don't really mean anything. Like, when I spend a lot of time in Ireland, and it's always fair play to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything.
Well, it means fair play to you.
Some cultures have a different attitude. So the Japanese have a concept, something called harage, and basically it means belly talk. And the idea is that you use a prolonged silence in business negotiations. And they're content with an average silence of about 8.2 seconds, so twice as long as we are. So I think it's very much a cultural attitude to it.
Maybe that's why, especially in dating, you do feel the silence a lot, because usually the instinct is, he's awful. A couple of bottles of wine and 2 years later, there you are.
Let's buy a flat.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that the theory? When you look at someone, you either want to kill them or you want to...
Yeah, if you're looking someone directly in the eye, it's either kind of sexual or aggressive after about 3 seconds. It's one or the other. You can't...
Not both?
It's not neutral, Alan.
Oh. That's sexual.
Right, question 1. What can you do on the London Underground in summer that a cow can't?
Find the central line, because they can't see red.
Oh, so inadvertently you're heading in the right direction. Central line is the clue.
Central line is the clue. Central line is the hottest of the lines.
Yes,
that is
correct.
What people do on a really hot tube in the summer is say, well, they wouldn't even treat livestock like this. Well, you couldn't say that if you're a cow, because you are livestock.
That is actually, weirdly, the correct answer. The central line is the hottest line on the tube. It regularly reaches temperatures in the summer that exceed the legal limit for transporting cattle. In 2019, a journalist recorded a temperature of 36.6 degrees centigrade. That's 100 degrees Fahrenheit in old money on a central line carriage when leaving Mile End. So one of the problems is it's one of the early lines. And when those early engineers, they didn't leave any space around the trains for ventilation or air conditioning or so on. So it's snugly wrapped in the surrounding clay, a bit like a blanket. And here's a really good thing. What do you think they do now with the abandoned stations, of which there are several?
Do they put big air conditioners in?
Would that be pointless? It's abandoned. I don't know why.
Listen, I don't know a lot about air conditioning, Sandy, as is apparent.
Yeah.
But I wondered if they could use it at the next station and somehow puff it down the line.
You're right, you don't know very much. I'm going to give you a point for not knowing very much. In fact, they use them as heat reservoirs, which warm homes in the winter. So City Road in the Old Street area currently heats 1,000 homes in Islington.
So it's almost like what I said, only the opposite of what I said.
I live in Islington. How do I know if it's my house?
I would ring up and ask.
My house does smell like the tube, though.
Yeah, that may be just... You need to throw some of those nappies away.
Some of them have beds in, don't they?
Yeah. Down Street has got baths and showers, so there are...
Nice.
So you wouldn't mind living in an underground station? I think that'd be nice.
I wouldn't like it.
Oh, why?
I need a window.
You probably have a window, just there's nothing to see. That's the only thing.
Just a window propped up on the side.
There's Bridget's window. Before the tube, first tunnel in London, any thoughts?
Under the Thames?
Yes, under the Thames, absolutely.
Greenwich Foot Tunnel?
No, the Thames Tunnel.
The Thames Tunnel?
The Thames Tunnels. Yes, the Thames Tunnels.
Where's that one?
So it was started in 1825 and it still has trains going through it, but that is a picture of it. It's entitled A Correct View of the Thames Tunnel. It was the first time engineers had tunnelled under a major river. So Mark Brunel, Isambard's father, he said he worked out how to do it by watching shipworms pooing. Yeah, so when a shipworm, technically called a teredo, burrows into wood, its head is protected by a sort of tough, like, helmet-like shell, and it digests the wood and then it excretes it out behind itself as a sort of hard residue that then lines the tunnel and strengthens. This is really clever.
So
and
clever.
I know, isn't that so brilliant, right? And he imitated this with a tunnelling shield, so it was an iron grid, right? And it pressed against the face of the tunnel when the workers are digging out the earth between the grid squares, and as they did that, others followed behind and reinforced the tunnel that they were creating. It took about 16 years to complete. They progressed about 4 inches every day. Who hasn't been there? And it was never really suitable for horse-drawn vehicles. In the end, it was just filled by souvenir sellers.
And that correct view, passive-aggressive labelling of that picture, was that one illustrator throwing some shade at another illustrator?
No, it was throwing shade at the fact that it should have been just nice ladies and gentlemen walking up and down, and in fact it was full of vagrants and acrobats and ne'er-do-wells.
Acrobats?
Yeah, people used to go down and entertain... street entertainers.
They love a tunnel.
They love... Which part of the body did Painless Parker specialise in pulling?
I'm not saying penis again.
Painless Parker, what do you think? He did some pulling.
With pulling, it makes you think of teeth.
Yes, you're exactly right. He was America's only ever dentist come ringmaster. Don't you love this?
Yes.
I think he looks a bit like Stephen Fry.
With no teeth.
Yeah. So his very first business plan, a very simple technique, ply patients with cocaine before pulling their teeth out. Or sometimes he would use a tumbler of whiskey. But he thought this wasn't enough because he did about 6 weeks and he hadn't had a patient and he thought he would promote himself. So he got a sort of a horse-drawn flatbed with a dentist chair on it and he charged 50 cents per extraction and you got given $5 if it hurt. OK? So he wore a top hat and tails and a necklace made of teeth. Eventually he had a live audience, a brass band, contortionists and dancing women, and he would sometimes enter on an elephant throwing coins to the ground, and the brass band was there to drown out the cries of the patients.
I'm currently involved in a lawsuit because I woke up at my dentist wearing clothes that weren't mine. I went in as a working-class gentleman and left as a toff, and my horse and trap was not to be found.
This is a tremendous worry to me.
Well, it is, but now I've got the backstory.
Yes,
I've got something to call it.
Yeah. So before forceps, people used to have their teeth removed by something called a dental pelican. That's what it looks like.
Oh, it sounded nicer than that.
Yeah.
It sounded like a...
But they didn't have a dentist chair, so the patient had to sit on a low seat with their head between the dentist's thighs. Yeah.
Well, like looking upwards at them.
Yeah.
So, time for some refreshment. Here we go. Let's have you pass that there to Sarah, if you would, Alan. Oh, there you go. There's one for you, Jack. You pass one to Adam.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'll have one myself. And there's one for you, Alan. There you go. Mmm. Mmm. You've done this before.
So... Make it upright first.
All right. Come on, will you talk to it? Come here, you. Oh, you look lovely. You're so huge. I don't think I'm going to be able to manage it. Oh, there you are, yeah.
Oh. Hey! What do you think these were once used for?
What carrots useful, or particularly these ones on sticks?
Well, not the, yeah, ones on sticks.
Waving in tiny aeroplanes? Is it like what Gwyneth Paltrow gives her kids?
Oh.
Well, they probably are.
You see in the dark.
Seeing in the dark, well, you're in the right era. When was it said that carrots could help you see in the dark?
At night.
In which period of history was it made known to people, this idea, which is not really true?
The Dark Ages.
Not the Dark Ages.
When did people discover vitamins?
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't until the beginning of the 20th century.
Because vitamin A is the key, helps your eyes, doesn't it?
Vitamin A does help you.
So it must have been around about then.
Well, it was really... It
must be so hard being a rabbit. They would never get any talking done.
They just stay in the hut.
What are you doing? Oh, I've got a mouth with a bloody carrot.
The problem was, in the Second World War, there was... We would run out of... Put it away.
Concentrate, Steve.
That's what I need to do.
It looked like the world's worst burlesque dance.
So, in the Second World War, there was a very great shortage of sugar, and there was a big surplus of carrots, and so they put it about that carrots helped you see in the dark.
Oh, did they?
And,
love carrots,
so they made sort of ice creams, as it were, out of carrots to try and make them attractive to children. There is a certain amount of sugar in them. As you could probably tell, they tasted a little sweet, didn't they?
Yeah, it was lovely.
And there was a group captain, John Cunningham, who was responsible for a very daring night raids over Germany, and they gave it out that what allowed him to do it was the fact that he ate carrots. In fact, what they were really doing was disguising the fact that they had on-board aircraft radar. They had radar on board. They didn't want the Germans to know. The Germans knew we had ground radar, not that we had radar on board.
So they sold the carrot story to the Germans as well?
That was the idea, both to get children to eat their carrots and maybe to get the Germans to believe that it was carrots that allowed our bombers to see over those...
Wouldn't it have been more beneficial if they'd said the reason our pilots are so good at seeing at night is because they eat slightly undercooked chicken?
You should have been working in British intelligence. You're just the kind of chap we need, Whitehall. Some domestic appliances that really nobody wants.
La, la. In a vicarage, a tie rack.
That is good. I can't take that away from you.
I'm appealing, sir. There's an act of great pedantry here, but there's not technically an appliance.
Oh. And this is electronic tie rack.
An auto steam tie rack.
There are electric tie racks. Yeah, there are tie racks that go bzzz.
Really?
Yeah, there are.
Such a thing exists?
Electric ones, I promise you.
Wow.
And that actually takes us to what the right answer is. When you said steam,
Those Corby trouser presses that you have in hotel rooms.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone use or heard of anyone using.
Brilliant. Do you mean others don't?
You've
Am I
used
the only
one?
I used them.
I use them.
Oh,
But not necessarily
okay. Well,
for trousers. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Whoa. Anyway, there's a whole load of appliances that were made in the 1920s and 30s when a lot of British people were starting to get a little bit more prosperous just before the crash. And they thought about going on the electric, as it used to be said. We're going on the electric. And what would be the killer app that would put them on the electric, the thing they wanted to have most?
Electric light?
That would be one.
Plug-in radio?
The wireless set.
Yeah.
And who were the other main suppliers other than electricity that had already been there? Gas. They thought, well, what we'll do is provide gas-powered radios to stop people from going on the electric. And there's an example of one. And they put them out and they said, oh, not only will you get the BBC, but you will warm the room slightly.
Increase the glow of your contentment.
Increase the chances of your house exploding. And not only did they produce wirelesses, they produced trouser presses. oddly enough.
Yeah.
Washing machines, washing up machines, everything that you can think of that is a household appliance, a white good, as we would now say.
There were gas-powered fridges, weren't there?
Yes, there were indeed. Very much so. But they just didn't catch on because electricity was just more reliable. And it's not that the gas actually powered the radio so much as that the gas created the current that powered the radio. So it was still electric, it's just you use your existing gas main.
What did the royal families of Europe wear under their uniforms during the 19th century?
Potpourri.
They were naked.
No.
They weren't nude. That's it.
They had rather fine underwear. Whalebones.
What was the question? I've forgotten this one as well.
What did royal families of Europe wear under their uniforms during the 19th century?
Silk undies.
It's closer to the skin even than your underwear.
Lice. Loads of lice moving around.
That's even a thought in your head is a worry. No. Decorative?
Tattoos.
Tattoos is exactly right. There was a craze for tattoos. According to the Hamsworth Monthly Pictorial Magazine, the Grand Duke Alexis of Russia was most elaborately tattooed, and there were lots of them. Prince and Princess Valdemar of Denmark, Queen Olga of Greece, King Oscar of Sweden, the Grand Duke Constantine, and in fact, also in the UK, King Edward VII and his son George V. Edward VII had 5 crosses, which he had done on a visit to Jerusalem when he was the Prince of Wales, when he was 20. And then George, his son, had the same design done by the same artist 20 years later. And my favourite story, it features a random Scandinavian, a randy Scandi of sorts. Napoleon's Marshal Jean-Baptiste Jules Bernadotte, he was a revolutionary firebrand, and he rose to become King of Sweden and Norway. And it turned against Napoleon, and he reigned for 26 years after Bonaparte's deposition. And while he was king, he never allowed doctors to see his naked torso. And there is a reason that became apparent after death when he was found to have a tattoo from his revolutionary days that said, "Death to kings." And his heirs are the royal family of Sweden to this day.
Wow. I mean, a lot of people do regret tattoos, don't they? Like,
have you got any tattoos?
I haven't, no. I've never really liked my body so much that I thought, oh, I'll decorate that. But I did see a guy in our local pub once that had a tattoo here that said, like, Sarah, and then it was crossed out, and then underneath it said Chloe.
Oh, I remember him.
Damn you, Chloe.
Chloe can have him. Some people are very passionate vegans and they get a tattoo about their veganism, and tattoos are made from burned animal bones. So themselves not vegan.
So you can go in and say, I'd like a vegan tattoo, please.
Yeah, I'll go to like a special one.
Please tell me there aren't vegan tattoo places. There are, really?
Yes.
That's very funny. There's 1,200 words in the Sunday Times next week, right there.
All life is material, Jeremy.
It is, basically.
Anyway, lots of kings have had tattoos, but we can't show you any for regal reasons.
All right, that's enough.
Thank you. Here is another. It's Christmas, time for Her Majesty's speech, but what did people sing before there was a national anthem? God Save the King, when does that come from?
I imagine it's Victorian.
I don't think that God Save the King started in Victorian times.
No, no. That's a very good point.
Wouldn't it be Rule Britannia?
Well, they're performed publicly in the same year. So God Save the King it was, first publicly performed in 1745. But there is a third patriotic song which is much older, used to be more popular than either of those things. It was called Britain's Strike Home. It was written by Henry Purcell in 1695 for a production of a play about... I don't know what we say anymore. Did we say Boudicca?
Yeah, Boudicca.
Boudicca is the way forward.
We still say Boadicea in Essex, where she lived.
I expect you've got it right. It was sung by a druid to whip up resistance against the Romans, and it used to be hugely popular, this song. The entire House of Commons sang it spontaneously in 1797 when war was declared by Pitt. It was played on board ship during the Battle of Trafalgar. The last recorded instance of it being played as a sort of patriotic rallying cry is December 1914. But it's since fallen out of public consciousness, so we've got a quick version performed by the Academy of Ancient Music. Have a listen to this.
Fight and record, fight and record yourselves into its songs.
Do you like it? You come from a composing family.
In terms of kind of patriotic songs,
yeah,
I prefer Three Lions.
I suspect it was written in the kebab house. 3 in the morning. Fight!
Fight! OK, so we are all going to sing. Here we go. Take home, revenge your country's wrongs. Fight and record. Fight and record yourselves in druid songs. That was really shit.
It felt like dinner at Nigel Farage's house.
The name of body part that babies are born without. It's a... Yes.
Remorse.
Fair enough. Body part. I'm looking for a body part.
Teeth?
Yeah, it is their permanent teeth. A lot of people think that they are born without kneecaps. That is not the case.
That's not a thing that people think, do they?
Yeah, because they don't show up on X-rays.
What? They've got invisible knees.
They're made of cartilage. Up until about 3 to 5... So there you are. You can see that you cannot see, as it were.
I can smell that nappy from here. I just...
It's not until you're 10 or 12 that you have a firm kneecap, and that's why it doesn't hurt so much when you fall when you're younger, because it is sort of cushioned.
That's amazing.
In fact, the human fetus, when it's in the womb, it's almost all cartilage. It's a bit like a sort of giant ear. But it is the permanent teeth. They take a while for the baby teeth to fall out. Begins at around the age of 6. Anybody know, 2017 UK survey, what's the average amount the tooth fairy leaves for a tooth?
Cheek.
Yes.
I'm going to £2.
It's 88p.
Oh, OK.
Who leaves 88p for
It's an average.
Yeah. Ostriches are the only animals in the world that have a double kneecap. They have an upper kneecap, which looks like that of most species, but also has a lower kneecap. Anybody know why?
Nope.
No, that's correct. Nobody knows why.
Is it to do with trying to take off, like the amount of weight when they used to fly?
Well, if you could figure it out, everybody would be thrilled.
Dedicate my life.
That's it.
In terms of human and animal senses of humour, there is Coco, a gorilla born in San Francisco Zoo, you may know about, who knows supposedly 2,000 words and 1,000 sign language words, said to comprehend both puns and slapstick. The puns, and this, you believe it or don't, she was once asked, what can you think of that is hard? And she replied, rock and work.
This is
extraordinary. That's a category slip. You know, it's a genuine sort of pun.
That's a zeugma, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a zeugma, yes.
She only needs a couple more and she could do it.
Yeah, that's a good word. Celebs is zeugma or zeugma. Yeah. Slapstick, she once tied her trainer's shoelaces together and then signed the words, chase me. And the brilliant Miriam Rothschild, of whom you may have heard, she did much work on pond life of various animals and extraordinary life cycles of incredible species. But she also had a parrot that could imitate her calling the dog and whistling and saying for a walk, and the dog would arrive, and then the parrot would laugh. Extraordinary thing. You know this joke, you must know it. It's his friend has a parrot, and the sports results are going, and he goes, Norwich 1, Ipswich 2. And the parrot goes, oh, no. Oh. You go, what's going on there? So, well, every time Norwich lose, the parrot cries and bursts into tears. And he says, well, what happens when Norwich win? I don't know, I've only had it 4 years. Came from the heart, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, there are all kinds of different human laughter, which have been categorised by Dr. Dirk Wildgruber of the University of Tübingen in Deutschland. There are some types of joyful laughter. Thank you. That was sarcastic joyful laughter. Slightly different.
Terrifying.
Joyful laughter! Social laughter. Taunting laughter. Oh, dear. Schadenfreude laughter. Any other kinds in your head?
Laughter where people, you tell them something and then they laugh, like they've got it, and then they realise they don't. They go...
What did the first sneeze sound like?
A tissue.
No, not
that. No, not a chew.
No.
Chew is different.
Yeah.
Tissue is different from a chew.
Okay.
Not having that.
No.
You've pressed the wrong
No,
button.
I think everything about sneezing...
Tissue. It's not the same as chew. That's a different sneeze.
OK. Everything about sneezing is adorable. The way that people, their eyes kind of glaze over, like they can't concentrate for a second.
The worst thing is when it goes away. When you think you're going to sleep and it goes away, you've been robbed of it.
He'll be back and it'll be even stronger.
I don't think you make any noise when you sneeze. I think it's a socially learned thing.
You're absolutely right. It's an affectation.
Is it?
So you could go, Yahoo!
Yeah. Well, deaf people who have never heard the affectation do not make the sounds that the rest of us make when we sneeze. So a tissue or a chew, or in German, hatschi. Hakshon in Japanese, the Filipino is hatsing, the Polish say apsik. We all have a noise that we make, but we've learnt to make it. Apparently, if you have never heard a sneeze before, what it actually should sound like is a heavy breath as the deep pre-sneeze breath is taken, then a sharper, faster sound of air being released. But we make that noise because we think we're supposed to. It's what a sneeze sounds like.
That's a great
fact. It's a really great fact.
Yeah. The record for the longest fit of sneezing belongs to a British woman called Donna Griffiths. She began sneezing on the 13th of January in 1981, and she had her first sneeze-free day 977 days later. She sneezed an estimated 1 million times.
Worked in the pepper factory, I believe.
Just be clear, that's not her. OK, that's just a very nice random person.
Stock image
Stock
sneezer.
image of person sneezing.
Yeah. So, and at school, did you have that thing where everyone was like, if you sneeze 8 times, it's the same as a whole orgasm? Did you?
No.
No. That was the thing at school, just like, oh, 3, 5 more.
Yeah.
5 more.
I think when you orgasm, I think it's nice to say, bang goes the dynamite. Or whoopsie-daisies.
It's really time to finish.
That also works.
It's the most fantastic game, which is played on I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, which is coming up with sentences that work both in the kitchen and in the bedroom. So things like, oh, it's a bit dry, do you have any cream? I prefer your mother's, that kind of thing.
Do you fancy a roast this Sunday?
That's it. Just stick it in for 20 minutes and I'll get you the free garlic bread.